Yes. Okay. Dr. Osman Benchik, are you ready to go on?
Yes, I do. Do you hear me?
Oh, not very high. Can you do something about your mic, maybe?
Do you hear me now? Is okay? No?
A bit better.
Is it okay?
Can you do a little bit louder?
Now? Do you hear me?
Yes, now we do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we? So, thank you very much. Thank you, Martin, for this kind invitation. And what I wanted just to do, just to share with you some idea about the role, the important role of the capacity building issue. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Let me first start by showing some, let's say, major issues that we need to take into account if we consider the conception of the energy in the developing countries. I mean, we have very, very low consumption in the developing countries. The energy issue is important, and I do believe that we are all convinced about that. However, we have made some calculations, and we see that it's really strongly correlated with the human development indicators. And if we take the developing countries, they must expand their electricity infrastructure 2 to 3 times more just to reach the SDGs basic needs. Now, we have roughly 15% of the world population, which is around 1 billion, that still lack access to electricity. And in Africa, they represent a very, very high number, which is 62% of the who do not have access to electricity. And if you go to the rural area, there are 85% of the Africans that unfortunately still do not have access to electricity. Now, from another angle, we see that the lack of access to electricity, unfortunately, it highly impacts the quality of education, and we still have 1/3 of the children in the world that without access to electricity, which represents 180 million, which is very, very high figure, and we can't stay with this. Now, having put the scene, let's see what could be the role of renewables. And we all know that by 2030, we have to increase highly the contribution of renewable energy. In the region, if we take the case of Africa, you have in that part of the world which is lacking, I mean dramatically access to electricity, you have a very, very high potential of solar, but it's the same for other forms. I took also the wind energy and for other form of renewables. Now, solar is almost everywhere, wind the same, and we can also think to the biomass, etc., and it's also the same. Now, if we have this potential, if we have the need, so why we don't get access to that? And here is the point, because we lack expertise and we lack know-how, particularly in the countries who do have need to access to that. And this can be seen through these figures. If I go back to the solar, you see that in Africa, we have the highest, in fact, potential. Now, if we go to the infrastructure in terms of research, development, and education, we see that that part of the world that has the highest potential, that has the highest need, is lacking infrastructure for education and training. Luckily in France, I mean in Europe, sorry, I'm staying in France, that's why. In Europe, we have the highest access, while in Europe, you do have, let's say, or we do have access to electricity through different means, and it's not a sort of emergency as everyone has the right to get access to electricity. So here we have a serious paradigm. How we can change this? We can change it by reversing the situation and improving the knowledge base, what I call it a knowledge base, particularly in the regions that do have the need, and in general, the developing countries. Why doing so? If we take, and I took a scenario of 100% access to electricity, this will create, I will take the example of Africa, which is easy for me, but it applies for all the different world regions. You need at least 2.5 million jobs that needs to be created. And these new jobs need know-how. It goes from the research and development to the technicians, to the project managers, to the economists, etc., etc. So this is a serious problem.
Dr. Benchik,
yes,
can you please speak a bit louder, because there are listeners who cannot hear what you are saying. So if possible for you, speak a bit louder or do something about the microphone, please.
Now, is it okay now?
It's a little bit better, yes. If
it's okay, then I continue like this, but please don't feel free to let me know, because I have also a problem of my voice. That's maybe why I'm not talking very high. Is it okay? Can I continue?
Yes, please.
So now that's why I do believe that we really need to change the energy development paradigm. We cannot continue this way through what? Through the mobilization of education. I put it first, the science and technology and innovation. And when I talk about science, technology and innovation, I mean the sharing of the science, technology and innovation at a universal scale. And here I will come to the initiative that we have launched to respond to that. What are the main challenges? The main challenges, they come finally from further efforts that need to be done in several renewable energy technologies. Would it be the wind, PV, biofuels, etc. And we have to put more emphasis on the end-use technologies with high energy efficiency, saving quality, to open a new research area, and to promote widely. And I was quite happy to see the presentation just before me talking about the science education on energy. And science education on energy should be widely developed, particularly in the developing countries. This is really a critical issue if we would like to reach the 100% access to electricity or to energy. And finally, in the developing countries, I do believe that the relevance of decentralized systems using the renewables is the most appropriate one. Let's have a look to the SDGs. The new SDG, I mean on energy, which is the SDG 7. We were quite happy, by the way, that finally we succeeded to have it there. I'm really glad that I took part of it, and believe me, it was not an easy task. And finally, within UN Energy, we succeeded to have it there, thanks to God. Now we have to meet the different targets. If you look to these different SDGs, you see that science and technology is needed to all of them. When I say science, in fact, it's in its broader understanding as science, technology, and innovation, which play a crucial role for the sustainable development. And the sciences is the science, technology, and innovation is the most critical means of implementation for the entire set of the SDGs. All the goals, by the way. In the new agenda, we require input from scientists and engineers. We all know that. And implementing the 2030 agenda, which is for tomorrow, in a decade or less, it shall be based, or it must be based on an integrated scientific approach and grounded in the best available knowledge. And the new development agenda, in fact, it recognizes the need to mobilize STI at all scales and across disciplines to lay the foundation for practices, innovations, and technologies needed to address global challenges today and in the future. You see then that science, technology, and innovation, which are based on the human resources development, are crucial in all the sectors of life. And here is the bottleneck. Unfortunately, this issue is not taken seriously into account when we devise about the energy issues. And for that, we have launched a global initiative for renewable energy education, science, and technology. Why education matters? The human resources, or the trained human resources, is the main pillar for the energy development shift. If we want to change the paradigm, if we want to have a shift in the energy development that we are witnessing today, and we have to change it, we need human resource development, particularly in those regions who are in very, very high need. Expanding the technological leapfrogging is key in addressing the energy challenges. I will come to that. There is no need to create the wheel again. In the developed world, and this is something that I do hope we will succeed in doing, we need simply to go to what is the latest state of the art and use it, and to have this, let's say, leapfrogging in terms of energy technologies. This will save money in terms of research development. It will avoid, and this money can be used for other issues and for the development, and it will avoid recreating things that have been done maybe centuries ago. The local and human institutional capacities is really vital for better management of energy strategies and adaptation of related technologies to local needs and priorities. If you don't have the competent human resources, you can't go ahead, and this is one of the marks of the, let's say, of the development. And the wide access to renewable energy, science, and technology by all nations is, from my point of view, essential for a global sustainability. Global solution will be possible only through global initiatives involving the various stakeholders in the developing and developed countries alike. What are the objectives of the initiative of the promotion of the human resource development? To have an international scientific exchange, a true one, through effective partnership and knowledge sharing. And this is something which is unfortunately really missing. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate the Folk Center for what you are doing, because this is the way to share, and we see that you are now launching different folk centers in different regions. In Africa, we do have already one, in Mali, in Bamako. I do hope we will have one very soon in Egypt and in other regions. This is what I call the effective partnership, which unfortunately does not exist at a large scale actually. Or it's done drop by drop. You have students or researchers, they go from south to north, stay a few months and get back, and etc. But this is not, let's say, viable. Advocacy for technological leapfrogging with emphasis on developing countries. That's what I was saying just before, that we have really to promote the technological leapfrogging if we want to speed the process and reach the targets of the 2030. And also to promote effective policies and institutional frameworks that facilitate technological advances. All these are part of what we aim to promote, and to support to interactive technology, to innovative technologies that enhance field knowledge, as well as the development of innovative learning teaching tools. And I do believe that we have here different institutions that are dealing with this. What's needed actually is in fact an enhanced coordination, and maybe having also some standards in terms of the education itself, but also the learning teaching material. So there are a few things that are done, but the situation needs still to be improved. I will not go along the main targets, but what I can say that in general, it tackles, who are, the main beneficiaries. These are the different sectors, from the education sector to the entrepreneurs for the production, installation and maintenance, as well as the end users and so on. So all the different components that take part in the, would it be in the research, the design, the implementation, and the maintenance are included in such initiative. At a general level, and here I want just to share with you some thought which are at a global level. So we really seriously, and this is one of the forthcoming battles, we need to link the different agenda. We know that climate is a crucial issue. Sustainable development is a crucial issue, and everyone talk about. But we know that science and technology, particularly in energy, is also crucial. But unfortunately, when you look to the importance which is given, would it be at the political level, or the general public level, or funding level, etc., we are not yet there. So what I am suggesting that we link the agenda, the agenda of energy, science and technology, including, of course, the education in this area, as well as the climate and sustainable agenda, and maybe all the SDGs as well. The human and institutional capacity development are key drivers to local development and the global sustainability. So if they are not there, we cannot reach the objectives. So why we don't link this agenda with them? And the technological leapfrogging in renewable energy, and I am insisting on this, should be promoted and expanded, and energy, science, technology, and innovation is finally, as I was saying, vital to the energy shift. Another global, let's say, directions that we are trying to promote, or that we hope will be implemented, let's say, in the nearest future, is to have the renewable energy skills and technologies shared and transferred. And that's what different institutions are doing, but it's not, yet there at global scale, unfortunately. To create regional alliances, these are essential to, would it be south-south or north-south-south? And to develop productive capacities to promote technological learning and innovation, and reinforce the key institutions, particularly in the developing countries where we have a lot of work that needs to be done. I am from that part of the world. That's what I feel a bit concerned, and I do hope that we will be heard one day. Now, before ending, and I do hope that we will have maybe questions if needed, I want to end on a sort of positive note. We can say that the global energy transition is well underway. The developing countries constitute actually the largest source of energy demand, and they exceed, by the way, the developed countries in terms of growth, which is a good sign for the development. most of the African countries do include now the use of solar-powered decentralized systems in their strategy to enhance the electricity access. Believe me, it was not the situation 15 years ago when we started the whole process promoting the renewables 15 or 20 years ago. And sub-Saharan Africa, with the highest rate of people living with poor quality of no electricity access, will certainly and likely play the main role in the large-scale use of renewable energy sources. And this is the beginning of what we call the energy development paradigm shift. And in a word, I say that the renewable energy revolution is luckily a reality today. In conclusion, changing the energy paradigm will be possible only if the access to renewable energy, science, technology, and innovation are widely shared and made available for all in all nations. The technological leapfrogging is key in this regard in the developing countries. So I hope that by this presentation, I try to highlight what would be and what is the role that renewable energy should play. And for such a major issue, we need a major initiative that is seriously taken into account when devising about climate and development. I thank you very much for your invitation and for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benchik. It was very good to have this, you can say, very necessary overview worldwide about what needs of education there are, especially in Africa, and but all second and third world countries are actually needing to have more electricity, and one of the reasons is that a lot of these places have no grid, and that means that they have to start up with some kind of small installation, and that means decentralized systems. And these decentralized systems, which we had in the European countries and parts of the US as well, back in the 80s and 90s, that means nearly 30, 40 years ago, they are well proven and could be used in these areas, rural areas, where they don't have anything yet which to use. And Dr. Benchik, do you
have the microphone?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
No, I hear you. I hear you. Thank you very much. Yes, I hear you.
Yes. But just a short introduction. And first of all, I'd like to ask if there are any questions to Dr. Benchik about his very good presentation. It seems as not for the time being.
Message process. Okay, if no question, it means that everyone agree.
No, but there might be some comments as well.
Yes.
Because anyhow, I would like to say something as well about these matters, because what I see is that we have a large potential, both for producing on a license basis or other sorts of basis in the developing countries. But of course, the education of the people have is a very important issue. Do you have any suggestions for things to be done here right now for the developing countries?
I do believe that, to get things done, you first need to sensitize the policymakers. By doing so, you will succeed getting access to the decisions taken on the ground. And in saying so, you understand why I was pushing for having a global initiative to sensitize, mobilize, and embark the policymakers. Now, coming to concrete actions, or let's say at micro level scale, not at that global scale that I do hope we will succeed in implementing. First, let me invite you as a Falk Center to join these and others as well, of course. Now, the initiative that you are having, you had already, in fact, in Mali, is an example, a good example. So please, please try to expand it to other regions. I was quite happy to see that, of course, if you can do so, because exchanging the students is not enough. The countries, they shall themselves have, access to that knowledge through, a link or partnership like what you are doing exactly. Now, how this can be done at a wide scale, so one again, how you can sensitize and mobilize your policymakers. So your example is good, but it has to be extended, and I hope that we will succeed doing so very soon. And I don't know if it responded exactly to your question, because I have not got part of it.
Well, thank you very much. Well, there are others who want to go in. Otherwise, I would like to ask you, what do you think about the possibilities for UNESCO to go into some kind of teaching programs for the energy sector, especially? Because that's, that means both for maintenance, which is very important when you have some new system coming on. You cannot have people coming from the industrialized countries all over, always to maintain and so on. I think it's a big issue. Do you think there's possibilities with your knowledge of the UNESCO to get support somehow?
Yes, a very good question, by the way. Even though I was heading the energy, in fact, it was energy science engineering. It was a global program that I was heading. But let me just tell you something. Of course, UNESCO, when you look to the UNESCO, let's say, mission, you have education, but this is for the general education, not the specialized one like on energy or whatsoever. And you have the science and technology. It is within the mandate of UNESCO, and it is the mandate of UNESCO. Now, the problem is that, of course, education, science is important. Of course, energy is important. But what's missing mainly in most of the institutions is not the will. The will is there, they would like to do. It's the funding, how to do it in terms of funding. And the limited resources that such institutions do have, unfortunately, does not allow to do everything. And we see that the need is huge and very, very important. So now you understand me why I was talking about the mobilizing, sensitizing the policymakers, because these are those who fund the institutions, including UNESCO or other UN institutions. So I guess that we need to reach the policymakers, which by connection will fund such projects, would it be in UNESCO or elsewhere. And Morten, this is the objective. I do hope that one day within the UN Secretariat at global scale, we will succeed in having such initiative. Let me just tell you something which maybe summarize all this. We were fighting in the for energy while it was not easy to do so on the role of renewables. Believe me, it was not easy for us to do so. And having energy as an SDG, it was a dream. But we were few dreamers, and we finally succeeded. I was taking part myself in the game and within UN Energy, thanks to Yum Kella, who was at that time the head of UNIDO, and he was chairing the UN Energy Group, where I was representing UNESCO, and we finally succeeded to have energy as one of the SDGs. So what I am saying now, why not having education, science, technology in energy or on energy as a worldwide issue that's taken into account. In that case, if it's done this way, we will certainly see the mobilization of resources that can flow to this area, and it shall not stay a marginalized issue as it's the case, unfortunately, today. So. Well, I think that I responded partially to your question. Yes, UNESCO is in charge of science and technology, but do they have the resources? I'm afraid it's not the case. Maybe your resources at the Folk Center maybe can be higher than what can be dedicated by this or that institution to such activities, because you are specialized in that area and you have access to the governmental funding.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benchik. Yes, we are doing here what we can, but it's a very big world we're living in, so it will only be minor spots which will come from here. But